Welcome to the Medical Device Made Easy podcast. Here is Munir Lazouzi from easymedicaldevice.com. And today we'll help you to understand what is a system, a procedure, pack, provider, company, and all those things that we are hearing or reading, if I can say, on the EU MDR and IVDR. And I have with me Erik Vollebregt, so our favorite lawyers from Axon Lawyer, who will help us for that. So hi, Erik. Welcome to the Medical Device Made Easy podcast.
Hey there, Munir. Thanks for having me again. I see it's shirtless trees day.
Yeah, it starts to be spring here, so
look outside. You can see that it's total shit weather in Amsterdam.
I see.
But I still feel very autumn, very summery already.
Yeah, so I think we are in transition now between winter to spring. So let's hope that the sun will be rising soon. So Erik, as I've said, we will really try to explain to people what is the system, procedure pack, provider, kits also for IVDR. So this is something that maybe will be helping a lot of companies. But just as usual, even if a lot of people know you, maybe there is new people coming. So can we have just a small introduction of yourself?
Yeah, of course. It's I'm Erik. I'm a lawyer specializing in medical devices, regulation, and legislation. Do a lot of work in, as I was telling you just before the recording, for example, litigating against the government about medical devices. I just won a nice case, so if I'm a bit hyper during this podcast, it's because of that. Actually, you know, but the client doesn't, so I'm going to tell them right after this podcast. I do a lot of work on the MDR and the IVDR, also on contracts in medical devices and IVDs, and also quite a lot of work in M&A. And that's basically what I do, and I've been doing it for a long time, and I do it for many MedTech Europe and COSIR members, but also non-MedTech Europe and COSIR members.
Yeah. So I think when you mentioned M&A, I was thinking, we should really make a podcast episode on M&A, because I have made an article, I think 2 or 3 years ago about that, just explaining how we can do a merger and acquisition, but not in the side of financial, but more in the side of quality and regulatory affairs. Maybe it could be a good discussion also.
That's an important subject, because these days, actually, I'm working on a merger now where they found out when the bid was accepted that the way the merger would be implemented would trigger all kinds of significant changes in the old MDD certificates. So now they have to basically reorganize the merger. So
I can imagine it's a lot of surprises that people discover after they have made the check, if I can say, instead of looking at that before, which is something important here. So today we will try to focus on something that I receive a lot of questions of, so regarding what is a system, a procedure pack, what is a kit, what is all this, how this is regulated, who can place that on the market, what is the rules for each of those, and I wanted really you to help us, if I can say, to give some answers related to that. I prepared some questions so that I can, it's mainly the frequently asked question that people are asking about that. But before that, can we have a higher level, if I can say, question, which is what is really a system, a procedure pack, or a kit under IVDR, for example, MDR and IVDR, so that first people understand really what we are talking about?
Yeah. It's something that people confuse a lot, actually, because let's start with the kit, because that's the easiest and also the most mystical one. Kit is something that was under the IVDD and the MDD and the AIMDD never defined, except in the IVDD MedDev on Borderline. That actually has a description of what is a kit. And basically there it says that's a collection of stuff for a specific in vitro diagnostic examination. And what we now have in the IVDR is actually a nice definition. It specifically says that it's, let's look at my definition. So it's a set of components which are packaged together and intended to be used to perform a specific in vitro diagnostic examination or a part thereof. So that's your definition of a kit under the IVDR. Now, the IVDR is a bit typical in the sense that A kit is a device in itself, because kit is included in the definition of what is an IVD device. And the things work a bit different under the MDR. So I suggest that we reserve the IVDR kit question for another time, because the IVDR also has some weird demarcation provisions for combinations with kits. But under the MDR, you've got the system and the procedure pack, and they look a lot alike. They are defined in Article 2.
22, yeah.
Article 2, 10, and 11.
Yeah, IHO and the definition, yeah.
In both cases, there are a combination of products. And mark that, because the IVDR says combination of components, and the MDR says products. So that's already different. And the difference between a system and a procedure pack for the MDR is that for a system, the products can either be packaged together or not. Whereas for a procedure pack, the products have to be packaged together. So, for example, to demonstrate this, I've got here. I've got my brain implant system that we placed on the market by Exxon.
Yeah.
And,
so just Erik is showing a box now.
So let's say, for example, I'm going to take one thing out. So now I've got my brain implant system, and I've got my charger for brain implant. So if I place this on the market as a system, the charger does not necessarily have to be packaged together with the rest of the system. But on the other hand, if I make this into a procedure pack, now it's a vasectomy procedure pack. Mm-hmm. Let's say I've got my vasectomy scissors in the procedure pack. Unlike the system, the scissors have to be packaged in the procedure pack. That's one of the differences. What is also a difference is that for a system, the combination of products needs to be interconnected or combined in order to achieve a specific medical purpose. And that is not needed for a procedure pack. So if we go back to my vasectomy procedure pack, it's not necessary that I can connect the scissor and the charger for the cauterization instrument, which you could use in a vasectomy. Whereas, let's say for the brain implant, if I have a charger, then it is necessary, that it can be connected to the programmer, for example, for the system.
It has to work really together. So a system has to work together. The different parts has to work together and connected. It can be that it's not packed together, but a procedure pack should be packed together, even if they are not working together.
Exactly. Yeah. A procedure pack is more like, well, it's exactly for a procedure, right? So in a procedure, you don't do all the things at the same time. The procedure doesn't result into a thing working in an interoperable fashion. And that is what a system is intended to do. And that is basically a procedure pack and a system, the differences. And what I should also remark is that both a procedure pack and a system needs to have a specific medical purpose.
Yeah.
So that is also important, because often companies or anybody forgets that for a system or a procedure pack, you need a specific medical purpose that might be not identical to the intended purpose of the devices included in it. Right? So that's also important, because otherwise, if you don't have a specific medical intended purpose, you've got this, which is also something we make. We have an Exxon convenience pack, which is basically just a box of stuff that clients can say, oh, I would like a box with an iPhone, a scissor, and a stapler, for example. And then we say, okay, I've got a stapler in the box, I've got an iPhone in the box, and there you go. But then And then it's a convenience pack and not a system nor a procedure pack.
No, I think it's
clear.
Basically
how it works.
Yeah, I think it's clear, but it's really something that people have to understand in terms of how this is working together or not together, packed together or not together. And one thing that maybe we have also to clarify is the fact that you can do that even if you are not the manufacturer.
That's right. Yeah, because because you can say the magic of a procedure pack or a system is that what you do is you combine systems that are already approved for an intended purpose by their manufacturer. And that also means that you do not necessarily need the manufacturer's permission to include them in a procedure pack or in a system. So, and that also means, because that's the Spider-Man's uncle's argument, with great power comes great responsibility. So if you combine these things as a person engaging in this activity, you also get regulatory responsibility under the MDR. And that is also that's also an important thing to keep in mind, because Article 22 describes what responsibility you get and also what you need to do in order to have a compliant procedure pack or a compliant system. So, and also something that is also interesting, and that's something that is also quite unknown, but maybe we'll discuss that later as well. That's a big difference between the MDR, the old directives and the MDR, is that a person putting things together to a system or a procedure pack is also an economic operator.
Yeah.
Literally, the definition of what is an economic operator under the MDR includes the person engaging in the activity of Article 22, Section 1, which is combining, but also, and that is even less known, the activity described in Article 22, Section 3, which is sterilizing procedure packs. So even a sterilizer of procedure packs is now an economic operator under the MDR.
Yeah, and can he do so? I mean, because a sterilizer of a procedure pack is maybe receiving this procedure pack from his customer saying, can you sterilize that for me? I mean, can he know that he has the responsibility as an economic operator for doing that also without maybe his job is really to sterilize only? So what do you think about that?
Well, if he reads the law, he should know, but it's not everybody who reads the law, unfortunately.
And this is the point here, is the fact that I have a customer say, oh, can you sterilize my product? Yes, sure, I can sterilize your product. So give that to me, I sterilize that, I give that back to you. But hey, be careful. All what you have done now, you are responsible. If there is any issue on the market, you are responsible because you were the one also as an economic operator within the EU MDR, which is kind of, yeah, as you said, the small lines on the contract that people don't read, which is really something also that is really, really important here. Okay, so we talked really about that in terms of I am the company placing things on a box or separately if it's a system and placing that on the market. I have some responsibility. Can I be the one, I mean, in terms of box, can I create the box and put my own name on the box, or should I put the name of those manufacturers that are having those products inside?
Well, actually, the MDR says you have to put your own name on it. That's Article 22, Section 5. That says that you need to do a couple of things as the person combining things into a procedure pack or a system. And that is you have to label it with your own details so that your location can be established. So basically put your address on it, a bit like the importer needs to do for the MDR as well. And also, and that's another important one, you need to do two things. You need to issue a declaration, the Article 22 2 declaration or statement in which you declare I have verified compatibility and so on. But also, and that is something that is often forgotten, and the MDR makes it very clear, you need to make an IFU for the system or the procedure pack that meets the requirements of Annex 1, Section 23 of the MDR. which is also that can be quite a lot of work to do that in sufficient detail.
So there is kind of some, it's not just create a box, buy a carton, put things inside, close it and send that to people. It's really some work in terms of that.
That would be this.
Yeah, that would be this with Axon on it, with all the things. So
that's possible, yes.
There is the name, my name as a manufacturer, or as a company that is placing that all together. There is the information related to the IFU, the be careful of this, be careful of that. Exactly. Exactly. And you have, yeah, I see here the UDI code also.
Yeah, that's another thing that is new, is a novelty under the MDR. So I've also got my mirror. I've also got a UDI because for a procedure pack and a system, these things need a separate basic UDI DI. So that's something that applies basically as of date of application, right? So all these systems and procedure packs that are being placed on the market by then need basic UDI DI. And then also you need to in the end engage even in UDI labeling and engage in that. So that's how you should do that exactly, is in Annex 6 Part C 6.3. With that has all the details on that.
And UDAMED also, because you have the UDI, you have also to register the products on UDAMED.
Yeah, that's another good point, because of course, what's the point of a UDI if you're not going to register it in UDAMED? And that's where the MDR is a bit, I would say, confusing, because it says that that's a bit tricky, because it says in Article 29, Section 2, it says that you need to have a basic UDI DI for your procedure pack or your system, but it doesn't say in Article 31 that the procedure packer or the system integrator needs to register as an economic operator. And that's I think a bit of an oversight. So that's why there's this NDCG guidance 2018-3 revision 1 that explains very explicitly that even though it's not in the law very clearly, I mean, you can't provide a UDI to the UDAMED database if you don't have an SRN, and you only get an SRN if you register as an economic operator. So
yeah, no, I think it's really important here, because if I remember before the MDCG came out, before all this, we had discussion with some system and procedure pack companies that were saying, oh, but nowhere on the EU MDR it says that I have to register on UDAMED, nowhere it says this and that. But they were, when I discussed with some people, they said, oh yeah, but it's under manufacturer. As soon as there is manufacturer, it's also system procedure pack, and this it's like a kind of an interpretation, but at a point, interpretation is kind of a problem also for everybody, because you can interpret it in one way or the other, which is a bit a problem. But when you look at the UDAMED listing, or what exactly are the information you have to register, inside there is also system and procedure pack information, yes or no. And here the MDCG is also giving more detail about that.
Yep.
So in terms I think, yeah, we clarified a lot of things here. One thing I want also to talk about is the fact that first, as we said, we can place those devices on the market. Mm-hmm. It's not our products; it's the products maybe from company A, B, C, and D, and we take that and we place that on our box and we send that. If there is an issue on the market, who is responsible then? Because it's not. I placed on the market, but it's not my product. It's a product of company A, B, C, and D. So am I responsible for something here or not?
Yeah, that's also a tricky one with systems and procedure packs, because the responsibility is layered, you could say. Because the way it works is that you need to define a specific medical purpose for the procedure pack or the system, which needs to fit in the intended purpose of each of the devices and products that you put in there. So this way you can never define a specific medical purpose that does not fit the intended purpose of any of the things that you include in it. And because each of the things that are included in the procedure pack and the system remain used on label, the manufacturer of these devices remains responsible for vigilance, post-market surveillance, and so on. Now, of course, it is relevant if you as a manufacturer know that your device is being included by somebody else in a system, then this would be relevant to monitor for post-market surveillance, for example. So that would be something that would be relevant to put in your post-market clinical follow-up, for example. Or if I were a notified body and I knew that for example, the device is also included in a system, I would ask the manufacturer, hey, are you also collecting data on this? Because the interaction with the other devices might actually create new information. Now, the interaction with the other devices, and that is another thing, is that that's the responsibility of the procedure packer or the systems integrator. Because I spoke about the Article 22.2 statement before. So what the procedure packer or the systems integrator needs to do is needs to verify the mutual compatibility in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions. And also, when they combine these systems, also do that in combination with the instructions of the manufacturer. So let's say, for example, the manufacturer has a paragraph on interoperability or compatibility in the IFU. If you combine things into a system or a procedure pack, then you must do this in accordance with the instructions for that. So you can't create your own Frankenstein interfacing protocol, for example, for software, even if that also might also work. And then, of course, you need to do your own validation that everything is actually compatible and working as intended, that you put into a statement. And also you need a quality system for this, for the verification of compatibility.
Yeah, and one last thing is, we talked about the fact, as we had some responsibility. Is it also the responsibility of a system and procedure pack to inform the manufacturer that they will create this pack, or they are really doing that without informing anybody?
No, they can, no, the only information obligation that they have is to put it in UNAMED under their own basic UDIDI.
But as a manufacturer, can I know with some procedure that somebody is doing that?
Theoretically not until you see it in UNAMED. But
okay.
what I see normally is that manufacturers will often agree with third parties that do this about, for example, to provide them with additional, let's say, compatibility information that is not available publicly, to allow them to do to make a more effective combination, for example. So usually you see it. And I think it's also an important thing about about responsibilities, because since the procedure packer or the systems integrator doesn't have their own responsibility as an importer or a distributor of these devices, so it can be that then you get all kinds of weird permutations. So for example, let's say I'm a systems integrator or a procedure packer, and so I've got my system. Oh, sorry. So I've got my system, and the stapler comes from China. Yeah. But I order it from China directly.
Okay.
From a company, from a Chinese company that has a CE mark.
But no importer.
But no importer. So that means I'm importer.
Exactly.
Right? So I get, for example, I get the programmer. I get it from a German company that has a CE marker for it, but they produce it in Germany. So then I could be a distributor for that, because the fact that I am a systems integrator or procedure packer does not exclude me from also being another economic operator, so an importer or a distributor. That's very important to keep in mind.
Yeah,
so that means that I'm basically running two quality systems. I'm running my quality system for combining these products into a procedure pack or a system, but I'm also running my distributor verification obligations or my importer obligations in order to make sure that I check whether the devices meet the requirements. And then suddenly I have a lot of UDAMED interaction responsibilities because I need to interact with UDAMED for my own SRN as procedure packer systems integrator. I need to issue a UDIDI to my procedure pack or my system, which I also need to maintain. So if I change things, I may need to issue a new UDIDI, for example. Then I, as a distributor, I need to verify whether there's a declaration of conformity, whether the manual is in the box and all this stuff. So then suddenly it gets very complex very quickly.
Yeah, we discussed, just for maybe the audience, we discussed that with Edgar Castile from Medenvoy on our last podcast, where he said that under MDD, there was a lot of people that were importers or distributors, but not knowing that. And now that they know what is happening with EU MDR and the responsibility of an importer distributor, they start to say, okay, I don't want to be importer. I don't want to be doing that. So you have to find somebody else for that. But they were doing that without knowing it. So it's why it's important here for the system procedure pack provider is more like to say, you are maybe already doing some importation thing because you don't really understand, if I can say this, logistic. So it's why it's important for them to understand. Don't think that you can be only system procedure pack. You can also be maybe importer without knowing it if you are importing products directly from China or wherever.
That's an important point because, that's people tend to forget. I think Edgar has a nice model with what he's doing.
Yeah, we presented that on the previous podcast. So for people that want to check that, so we had made the podcast which is called like independent importer, which is more like an importer that is not touching products at all. But we talked more about liability also. We talked more about the problem that we have to have some trust with some companies, because if they do something wrong, it's also the fault of the importer. So yeah, I think people can go and look at this episode for more information, which is also giving information related to what we talk about today. So let's now focus on systems, because I think there is also something important about systems, which is about the fact that you can have a system, so it has to work together, but they have different classification. Yep. So you can have a component that is class 1, and some component that is class 2A, 2B, 3, or etc. And because of EU MDR, we have some misunderstanding in terms of, for a system, should my class 1 component be compliant to the EU MDR by 26th of May 2021, and the rest be available by expiration date of the certificate? Or should we consider it as a system, so we are not really looking at class 1 or 2A or 2B? Or how are we thinking about that?
That's a good question, because what basically, like under the MDD, we had Article 12, the systems provision. The same logic applies under the MDR, and that is that in case of a system, the CE marking of the individual devices included in it is basically nothing happens with it, as long as all the devices in it are used on label. As soon as one is used off label, then the whole system needs to be CE marked as a single device. If you use all the components of the system as on label, under your own specific assigned medical purpose, then as a systems integrator, you basically have no concern with the regulatory status or the CE status of the individual product. So that means that, for example, if you put in a class 1 device that is up-classified under the, or is not up-classified. Let's take that as an example, because I think that's where you were going.
Yeah, exactly.
So a class 1 MDD device that needs to be go into the MDR as a class 1 MDR device, then what you need to verify is whether the device is still compliant after the date of application of the MDR. Because if it's a class 1 device that doesn't change classification, it has to have a declaration of conformity under the MDR as of that date. So that means that basically, again, as a systems integrator, you do two things. First, you check whether the device is still compliant in your system. And as a distributor, you check whether the declaration of conformity checks out, because otherwise you can't distribute it. So that's a double responsibility. And for the devices with the class 2B certificate, for example, that goes into the grace period, well, same thing. As long as the certificate is valid, then you can use it. But you need to also monitor whether the CE certificate remains valid. Because let's say, for example, you have a piece of software that is class 2B. Theoretically, that's also possible under the MDD, and it's part of your system. Then, then they do a software update. They invalidate their CE certificate because the software update causes a significant change. Then you can't put it in your system anymore. So these are things that you would need to monitor. And the problem is that that is a bit of a, let's say, you could say, issue with the Article 22 procedure. The manufacturer of the device does not have an obligation to keep you informed as a systems integrator. That's let's say the other side of the coin that we just discussed, that you as a systems integrator do not have an obligation to inform the manufacturer of the device that you're integrating it. So this shows that there is actually value in having a good relationship with the manufacturer as a systems integrator, because it allows you to receive this kind of information earlier.
So it's also the same situation for the manufacturer that has some accessories that are class 1 also that are used within their system. So it means that some of their product or elements will have a declaration of conformity under MDR, and others will still stay under MDD, etc. So there is also this management of all this to create. It's not like easy, if I can say, so brainstorming or that.
It can even get a way more complicated one here, because the MDR says that you can also have other devices bearing the CE marking. So you can have, let's say, a device that is
a camera, a
toy, or a Bluetooth transmission unit that is only certified under the RED directive, the Radio Equipment Directive. Or you can have a piece of electronics that is only LVD and EMC certified. And if you have changes in those directives, this is also something that you need to keep in mind as a systems integrator, that they also remain compliant under that legislation.
So is this also something that those kind of changes that are happening to those components, is this something that can accelerate, if I can say, you to move from MDD to MDR, because they are changing this kind of components? So then it's a significant change, then you have to move to MDR?
No. Well, what it could force is that if you are selling a system of which one of the components is not compliant anymore to the original legislation that it was approved under, it may result in the fact that in the situation that you have a non-compliant system and that you would be forced to get a CE mark for the whole system. And that after 26 May is an MDR CE mark. And that CE mark will then need to be granted by the risk class of the highest risk device in the system or in the procedure pack. And
yeah, because we have systems where we have some components that are class 2B, 2A, maybe 1. So yep. if we talk now about system, it's more like the highest class on the system that is making, like, your system is class 2B. It's not class 1, it's really class 2B.
Yeah, because then you would need to use the classification rule that says that if I have a group of things that together have one medical intended purpose, then you need to assess them, and then it might be that different classification rules lead to different outcomes because you have various components in it, and you need to take the highest classification result then.
So I think it's really providing all the answers related to this kind of question that I was planning to ask you. So the elements related to system, procedure, pack, etc. So it's one element, and as we said on the IVDR, this is not existing, and maybe it will be a future talk. But we can have kits within IVDR, but it's not like the same definition as a system and procedure pack and with the same rules, etc. So it's also something that is more complicated, as we talked about before.
Yeah, and also you need to be careful what it is, because if you look at Article 22, Section 1, it says that a system can include an IVD. So it could be an IVDR. You could actually have a system with a kit in it, for example.
Okay.
And on the other hand, a kit, if you look at the definition, well, let's play with that a bit. It means a set of components.
So not product, components for this time.
Yeah, so it can basically be anything. So you get into really weird demarcation problems, and then then you would need to really go into Article 1 of the IVDR to determine does the IVDR apply to my combination or not, or does the MDR have preference, and then it depends on the combination that you make.
Yeah. So I think, as I said, this is maybe another discussion. Before you talk to me about also the fact that you discussed that also on your book that you have created. So when are we planning to see this book?
Well, the book is it's still almost finished. I have 2 final proofreaders in the last stages, and then the layout company needs to do the layout. But I hope it will be finished before the date of application, so everybody will be able to buy it before then.
Great.
But it's still, it's so much work, and the problem is it's a moving target, right? Because still new NDCG guidance, exactly. That, the other thing that you want to put in. So
I suppose you will have multiple versions because each time there will be a new things coming.
Yeah. I'm planning on releasing a new version like every half year or something.
I suppose also, yeah. I think it's great. So I hope when it will be released, we can also show that within this episode, and then so people can really have it. So I think it will be great. Okay, Eric. So really, thank you for your help. Thank you for all the information here. I hope it was really helpful for people to have some clarity on the system, procedure pack, what they have the rights to do and not to do. And I think now it's really clear for people. So really, thank you for that. And for people that are listening, so don't hesitate to go to the website to ask your question. I forward them to Eric if there is anything, and also on the YouTube channel if there is any questions. So I will forward them to Eric. So don't hesitate. And if you have any question, also if you have any topic that you want also us to discuss on a podcast, so don't hesitate to send me an email to info@easymedicaldevice.com. So info@easymedicaldevice.com. Okay, Eric. So really happy. Thank you very much, and I wish you a nice day.
You're welcome. Take care. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.